Joining us is Stefanie McNeal, a physical therapist at Baylor Scott & White. Stefanie, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So I would assume that you are charged on a daily basis with trying to get people back to, their pre-COVID life again after they have come down with one of these terrible infections. What symptoms of long-haul COVID are you seeing?
Yeah, great question. So we see the gamut. We see people who have fatigue or post-exertional malaise. We see people with weakness, debility, the shortness of breath that you were talking about, difficulty doing their daily tasks.
What do we know about Omicron specifically and long COVID? It seems like, we've heard and we've read so much about how Omicron doesn't necessarily make you as sick as the Delta variant did, but we know that there have been some very severe cases of Omicron as well. Have you seen long COVID coming from Omicron cases?
Well, I think the research is still lagging behind, obviously. The definition of long COVID is that more than 4 weeks and 3 months. And so it hasn't quite had enough time to really determine how severe long COVID can be in the Omicron variant. But most definitely we see people who were even in bed for a week if you had a severe case, but were able to recover at home. Even just being in bed, if you're already have a low ability to function, that can put you below the level where really it's difficult to get up from your bed and go to the bathroom or care for your children or walk to the mailbox. So even if it's not classified as long-haul COVID, you still see those functional deficits.
I think it's great that you bring up the lag time with research there. I think we've all kind of gotten spoiled. We treat it like, cooking something in the microwave oven. We want those answers right away and we expect it right away, but the research takes a while to catch up to these things, and Omicron hasn't been with us for that terribly long compared to some of the other variants here. I want to ask you, when someone has long COVID, what does recovery look like for that? It seems like it would affect pretty much everything, and so you got to start somewhere, but it seems like it would be a real process.
Yes, it can be a real process for a lot of people. Baylor Scott & White Rehab has a program called Recovery and Reconditioning that specifically speaks to long-haul COVID symptoms, and we monitor vitals for that cardiopulmonary effect to make sure that everything's working correctly, and we work with the medical team. But then we also make sure that we're working with you for your goals. And so, a typical stay in the Recovery and Reconditioning program can be about 12 weeks. It just depends what severity we're talking about. Were you a runner and you can only run 1 mile, but you're used to running 3 or 4? Or are you someone who had severe illness and now, you may have had a stroke due to COVID. You may have just been in bed, and so it takes a while to get that endurance up.
I would imagine that you see so many different symptoms in long COVID too. It's not like there's just this short list where you can go, yep, you've got long COVID. It varies from person to person. I'll finish on a question from one of our viewers. They've been sending in different questions, and they talk about having brain fog after COVID, and they're curious if that's a symptom of long COVID, which it probably can be. It could probably just be a symptom of regular as well, but I imagine that you probably see that.
Yes, that is a great question. I'm so glad you brought that up. So there is help for brain fog. So our speech therapists specifically address those needs. Brain fog, difficulty concentrating, if you're having a hard time at work, remembering things, there's treatment for that. And so that's one of the main things we want to make sure people recognize is that if you're having trouble with anything in your life that you used to be able to do, you should seek treatment. So find a rehabilitation program that's specifically geared towards COVID. Talk with your primary care. There's help and hope for you, and we want to make sure that people understand that and get the help that they need.
I'm glad that you spell that out, because I'm sure it can feel like a very lonely road when you are walking that road of long COVID, or even recovery that's not long COVID, because it can really be hard on the body and the mind. Stefanie McNeal, physical therapist there at Baylor Scott & White, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.